This episode is brought to you by the RVA Podcast Network. Find more information at rvapodcast.org.
We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. Finally, this is the podcast every day in August. I almost messed up in saying April, but because I love this platform and I'm a creative, we are here to do what we do, and that is create content. So if you are not a follower or not a listener, please check me out on all podcast platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Acast, Overcast, Stitcher, every podcast platform you can think of. This podcast is there. Continue listening. And this is The Past BT with your host, Brian, aka BT. What's up, y'all? What's going on? Episode 288 of The Past is here. I am your host, BT. We are doing a theme that I have been wanting to do for a minute. Didn't have a chance to really do it the way I wanted to initially, but life happens. So you do what you can, you make the pieces work, and you just kind of flow with it. Any of you who have been following or keeping up with The Past, whether it was The Past BT, whether it was Past Podcast, whether it was Bronte Podcast, whatever platform or form you saw or heard this podcast in, you do or may recall that I used to do a theme where I would do a podcast recording every day for either the month of August or the month of April. My roommate, aka Fred, if you have been listening to the show for a bit, she came to me with a very creative idea to, get a little bit of exposure to the podcast. So it started with Evelyn from the internet, who she does a trend where every day in April she does a vlog or does a video, which is obviously Veda, or vlogging every day in April. Like I said, I did it before, and I know I did it in April one year. I did it in August that same year. And there was one point where I did it in April, but didn't really push it heavy for August, trying to get it finished up. So we're going to kind of do a slight but simple breakdown of why. Well, a couple of things. One, why am I bringing it back in August? Two, why didn't I consider doing this in April? And very briefly or very simply, what you will be expecting to hear for the next month with these shows. Now, first and foremost, I will go ahead and get the obvious out of the way. April, this was not going to be a thing. And the reason why I knew it wouldn't be a thing is not in a negative manner, but in a transparent manner. April was not one of my best months for personal assessments, personal reasons. I just had a lot of other things that I was dealing with or handling. The biggest thing that I was handling at that time was school. If you have been following or keeping up with the channel, I've been talking about it off and on, but I did attend school. I was actually getting my third degree, getting my associates in network and cybersecurity at ECPI. So that was my main focal point at that point or at that time. So April was not especially that particular month, because if you all remember, also COVID or coronavirus, whatever term you want to pin it as, that happened as well. So all of that occurring just kind of made a bigger influx of action happening. And I just kind of got put in a position of, hey, you just gonna have to focus on school, which I did. And I had plans on anyway. I really didn't look at any point pushing to really do the podcast at that time. So now we fast forward to why am I bringing this back in August of this year? And my simplest or most direct answer I can give is that I'm definitely working harder on being the true creative that I am. And I, have been working on that, but now working on it. And I think now with different things happening in my life, such as um, getting my business registered, with kind of getting my routine back in order, just doing little things to kind of put myself in a better space. I know for a fact, anyone that knows me knows I pretty much have learned or self-taught my routine or taught myself podcasting inside out. So doing this for me personally isn't as, I won't say time consuming, but it's not as challenging in the sense of, oh man, it's a lot of work to get podcasting going. The work, and I, my roommate and I, Fred and I, we talked about this numerous times off air, and it's kind of almost like the gym or the factor that goes into podcasting that's not thought about. The easiest part for people is hitting record and hitting stop. Everything before that is what becomes challenging, and everything afterward is what becomes challenging. One of those components being the editing, another component by far being the infamous social promo, the, tagging. If any of you who do podcasts know about this, metadata of just tagging the podcast correctly, getting all of that done before you actually upload a show is not that as simple as others think it is. You really have to make sure you're doing the right things to get the right tags, to get the right attention on your show or on your personal platform. So those things I personally have been doing my best of making it my goal to work on. And now that I've gotten into a better routine of doing this, it's been helpful. I also want to give a brief cred to a friend of mine, Ashley. She's been kind of like my podcast promo or my podcast backup support in a sense. I'm not sure if she has been listening or keeping up with the platform or with the shows, but I know we were in contact for quite some time over the last couple of, for the last few years, because she was doing a podcast every day, like year round. And she had, as anybody does, life happens. So it where life takes you or where your routine carries you is just, you having to do what's best for you or your routine. So I've made it my goal to like just be that person that's supportive and is as vested as I can to those who are working on what they're working on. And that's just been what it's about for me from day one. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not really too difficult or too challenged in doing this. I think the challenge more than anything is just making sure that it's not done with the wrong intention. And that's been my biggest adjustment along the way. So like I mentioned earlier, you're going to get quite a few pieces of content that are going to be far from what you hear on my bi-weekly show. My bi-weekly regular show is about sports, technology, music, video games. If you've noticed, as you heard in the last two episodes for 287 and 286, or 286, 287, however you want to put them, those two shows are kind of setting the staple for what I really want to start working on, which is getting other people on the show, getting people out there who are like me, but just in different manners, doing different things, being creative, or just being themselves and being true to who they are, or being a key part in their growth, let alone my growth. So it's gonna be a good ride. I'm gonna tell you now, I've got a list of stories that I'm gonna talk about or that I plan to get into. If I feel that it's a different direction that I want to talk or bring up some ideas, then we just gonna pass it wherever it needs to be passed. And that's just kind of what it is right now. So I'm definitely going to be putting a lot of time and a lot of effort into this stationery, this setup. Even today, like I was sitting down and I was, did my grind, got off, and afterward, the first thing was, all right, well, I'm gonna sit down and set up and start recording. The hardest part was getting the mic out, getting the laptop set up, getting everything going. Then even in doing so, the infamous, okay, technology wants to be technology. Let's not work for a moment. I've had those experiences, which you know how that can go. But luckily I didn't, get too, I try my hardest as much as it may shock people to just not get too discouraged by things going the way they have or should go. And that's just kind of what it is. So, like I said, these shows, they might be 5-minute shows, they might be 10-minute shows. It could be a half an hour show, but I just want to be sure that I get out there and really create and present more content. And I know for a fact, personally, there will be some news and some things that I'm definitely planning to share with the listeners, because it's, things that have come or are coming that everyone is overdue to be aware of. And it's things that I need to be more accountable and more aware of myself. So that's what I have for y'all. Like I said, just lock in, buckle up, and I will let you all know in advance. If you miss a show, it's okay. All of my shows are on thepastbt.buzzsprout.com. We have an insider joke that I'm going to share with you all. You're not going to hear these intros for PEDA, but I may keep the weekly show as it is, or the weekly intro, in making the fun piece about how I had to remove my old platform Spreaker and introduce my new platform Buzzsprout. So we're gonna be having fun with that. I'm gonna definitely, if nothing else, I do want to get into the infamous Washington football team name change, because as I was telling people this story, they thought I was just giving the information as general info, but the reality is that's their name. I'm not gonna talk about that too much on this show. On this one, I just want to let y'all know that the podcast every day in August is back. And I am definitely looking forward to placing just that 20 to 30 minute window of just creating in this space with this platform. So if you're a returning listener and you've been part of the show for this long, continue listening and catch up as best and keep the flows going. If this is your first time, or you have been here maybe less than 5 shows in, you got a lot of listens to catch up on. I will give you all the early presentation, because I must. We are going to be on the cusp of hitting that big mark of 300. And I definitely am going to be preparing to do a lot of assessing and presentation and looking at the evolution of this podcast, because I think in 300 episodes I've used, I want to say, 4 microphones just to put it in perspective. And literally one of the microphones, well, yeah, I guess you could say 4 microphones, because I actually had to use my my headphones that had a mic as one of my sources for a microphone. So between that, between my Yeti, between the Yeti X, between the Samsung Meteor, between all these different options and choices, I've been able to do what I do, which is sit down, tell y'all what's up, and give good content. So I'm not going to, I know I said 10 minutes, and I know I'm rambling a little bit with this, because it is a little new for me, like refreshing my brain back into like my random rants of potting or podcasting. So just lock in, have a seat, and just kick back, because this gonna be a good show. So as always, I appreciate y'all listening. You could definitely be in your audio bag in various forms, but you took time to just stop and chill to check out the past. So let's start PEDA. BT signing out. Hey y'all, we made it through another show, man. Hope y'all got through it. Hope y'all learned something, gained some new information, either about myself and or about podcasting. If you're looking to invest in podcasting, I have different ways of giving you the information and the tools to get you to the right direction with potting. I'm currently I've currently switched from anyone who remembers. I've been on Spreaker for years. I am a newborn in the Buzzsprout community, and I would definitely say it is one of my faves to use. And also, when it comes to audio, you do not need the most expensive microphone. All you need is a microphone that can catch your voice and can gather your words. So with that being said, this is The Past. I am your host, PT. Hope y'all enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back to do this again next time.